Last week, I was craving a puzzle game, some tasty little morsel that I could sink my teeth into for a handful of hours that would feed my need to exercise my brain. So I dove into the deep, dark depths of my backlog and emerged from those dusty depths with The Room. A decade-old puzzle box game full of mystery and lore. Now, before you get the wrong idea, I really enjoyed my time with The Room, especially the atmospheric sound design. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time with the amount of tension they were able to develop just through the audio alone. This game has 99% overwhelmingly positive on Steam, so this is probably the first and only time I will ever be in the 1%. Unfortunately, there were a series of puzzles within this game that just triggered me so badly and got me thinking about my favorite dead horse to beat when it comes to game design, and that is that hints are trash. So here's what happened. Like any good puzzle game, The Room has numerous lock and key puzzles that are in and of themselves mini puzzles. The first set of puzzle keys I encountered in the first stage were easily overcome. Just a twist here and a turn there, and we had keys that matched the lock openings. Easy, breezy, beautiful. The next set of puzzle keys were not necessarily more complicated, but this is where I encountered my first unasked for hint. I had gotten the arms of the keys oriented wrong, and when I went back in to fix it, an outline in the shape of the lock had appeared. Annoying, but not egregious, since I had technically gotten it wrong. It was the final set of keys that solidified my hatred for this mechanic. I procured the set of keys and opened them up inside the inventory to inspect them before going to look at the lock they were meant to match. I didn't even try to put the keys in the lock. When I went back into my items to work out the key orientation, a teal outline had already appeared. And this? I despise this. And the reason it's such an ick for me in terms of game design is that mechanics like this undermine the integrity of the game, particularly in the case of a puzzle game where the whole point is to work out a solution for yourself. It makes me feel stupid. I'm not stupid. I'm sure that wasn't the dev's intention. But it hurts my pride a little bit, honestly, that the game was trying to rush me into finding the solution instead of allowing me to take my time, which is all I would have needed, since these aren't hard puzzles to solve and only really require some solid observation skills and some minor spatial reasoning. And that was a little bit of a recurring theme in the game, that feeling of being rushed. See, there was also a clue system that you could use to have the game gently nudge you in the right direction, and that mother fluffer was singing at me every other minute. Here I was just trying to enjoy my evening, leisurely going through this game, and I'm an explorer by nature, and that applies to just about every game I ever play. The fact that this game just kept pushing and pushing me just started to get to me. Really, honestly, just let me take my time. I will get to the solution eventually. Luckily, this game is 11 years old, so we don't really have to worry about things like this in modern games. Right? The latest discourse I can remember on this was with the Resident Evil 4 remake, where the devs had decided to put paint markers on crates and barrels that the player could interact with. This is a mechanic that already existed in the old game, at least the signposting. In the GameCube/PS1 and 2 eras, the graphical fidelity of these games was really hit and miss. And so in a lot of those older games, you could have something as blatant as a white outline indicating when items or objects were interactable, or just have incredibly different textural fidelity, showing you which items could or could not be interacted with. So it's kind of like same shit, different flavor, in my opinion. But this isn't the only game that has recently had this problem. I remember with the God of War reboot, a lot of people did not like the markings that appeared throughout the overworld that guided the player through the story. Now, I think they did a very good job of having an in-game lore reason as to why those markings existed. I know the game's like 5 years old now, so I won't spoil it in case you haven't played it, but there's a good reason. And I was like, okay, that's a good way of handling that sort of signposting within a game. However, with the newest God of War game, God of War Ragnarok, the companions are constantly giving the player hints about how to proceed to their next objective. And this kind of thing just doesn't generally sit well with seasoned gamers. I understand where the devs are coming from, wanting to balance like a sense of fairness and sort of accessibility to as many players as possible. Even the End of the Room had a postscript that hoped I made it through the game unflustered, but honestly, let me be flustered. Actually, it's just struck me that this issue is probably part of a bigger problem when it comes to game design. In fact, I think it has something to do with pacing. Like, in order for these 60, 80, 100-hour games to feel like they are clipping along at a good pace, perhaps there's a pressure on developers to make sure that players never feel stuck. Not like when we were kids and it would take days or weeks to get past certain parts of games. A lot of players have expressed that they don't want to have these overly bloated games. They don't feel like they can take on that big of a game because of their limitations on their free time. And what with COVID and lockdowns bringing a lot of new people into this space, not to mention the rise of video game culture, more and more new gamers are joining the ranks. We have shows like The Witcher, Arcane, The Last of Us, to the Mario movie. There are lots of people encountering games for the first time. So I think it's valid to make sure that you are signposting things within your game in a way that is as accessible to as many people as possible, at least depending on the game. But I speak fluent gamer. There are a lot of things about games that I take for granted, sure, but those little mental models allow me to be a more effective gamer. Which brings me back around to the point about not allowing these game systems or mechanics to undermine the integrity of the game. That means that decisions your game makes may exclude a certain subset of people from being able to play your game, whether it's an intelligence, perseverance, or skill issue. I don't want to spend the whole video complaining because I hate the idea of rage baiting you all. So here's what I would propose as a fix for this mechanic, at least in the room. Obviously, other games would need other, more specialized solutions. We already have the eyeglass that is used to access certain clues for these puzzle boxes. Why not also allow it to be used on items within the inventory where it could highlight different kinds of hints depending on the item? In the case of these key puzzles, it would allow you to visualize the outline of the locks they are meant to fit. It's the same hint that you are getting within the game already, just accessed through this eyeglass mechanic. Most importantly, it would be optional, which always goes a long way in my books to not feel pressured to use a certain system in a game. Because let's be honest, if I need a hint for a game, I have no shame in turning to the internet and the game's community for a nudge in the right direction. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like or share the video and comment down below what your least favorite hint system has been within a game. I really think it's fascinating to look at these friction points within games. People usually have a lot better idea telling you what they don't like as opposed to telling you what they do like. So I think that would be a really fun conversation to have. And until next time, GG.